If you walk without rhythm, you won't attract the worm. Do not be shocked by the tone of my voice. Should Dune 2 be your weapon of choice?
Ah! Welcome to the Cinefanatics. My name's Robert Adams.
I'm Chris Adams.
And we are fresh out of the theater from seeing Dune Part 2.
Dune
2. Dune 2. Dune again.
Doing it again.
Doing it again. Yeah, here we are. Just to let y'all know, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. There are some spoilery things in here, even though if you may have seen the original David Lynch 1984 Dune, you may be familiar with like the background on Jodorowsky's Dune, or you may have read the books that these are based off. Go figure.
You may have seen casting announcements on Twitter.
That too. Whatever. We're not talking about those. We're going to talk about the movie and how much we enjoyed it. That's right. This is a positive review. Very positive.
We liked it. You should go see it. Done.
Thank you for watching this review. We'll see you later. Bye.
No. Yeah. What's the word you had when we got out of the...
Damn.
Yeah. This is...
Neighbors are like, what the hell's going on over there?
Yeah, that's going to spike on the audio later for you.
I will fix that when editing.
So here's the thing. If Madam Web represents one side of the cinematic landscape, Dune Part 2 is the exact polar opposite of that.
Now, I'd like to say we're not trying to put down another movie to elevate a movie, but I mean, it kind of did that to itself.
I'm trying to give you a proper perspective of what to expect here.
So speaking of proper perspective, first thing I want to talk about real quick, briefly, is both of us kind of saw like Dune Part 1. I have seen the 1984 David Lynch original, and we saw Dune Part 1. We're okay with it. It's a good movie. It looks nice. It's gorgeous and stuff, but it was just kind of hard to get into. There was something there that was just kind of hard to mentally get through for both of us.
It was what people at the time referred to as a dense sci-fi epic, which for those who are not familiar with the Dune property, the Dune books, the Dune story in general beforehand, it was a little bit difficult to get into and wrap your head around, especially when they start using terminology that is not English.
Yeah. So, yes, one of the things we did to help rectify that before we had to go see this one is we watched Dune Part 1 again on Max, because it's streaming, and turned on the subtitles. If you've ever heard of people watching movies with subtitles on, it is so much easier to understand what's going on, especially if you've already seen the movie. I am a big fan of dense movies, turning on the subtitles just to kind of help make sure you're capturing everything.
Ironically, to understand the Dune story, turns out reading does help.
Should have read the book beforehand. Go figure. All the comments on all of our trailer reactions like, you need to read the book. You're doing yourself a disservice.
How about I read the movie?
I'm just gonna read the movie. Like that's what we did.
It infinitely improved to the first movie. I love the first movie now, and I was super excited going into Dune Part 2. After having rewatched the first movie again.
I feel like it definitely helped because, we went into this movie a little more familiar with the terms that they're using because there's a lot of weird terms that you have to get used to, and some of these are terms that they use for multiple things. Like the Mali Deeb is typically used used to talk about the kangaroo mouse that's in the desert, but they adapt it to describe Paul Atreides. So knowing those things, that kind of helps that you're understanding that it's two different things.
Nisan al-Shaib.
Yeah, and especially the fact that like Paul Atreides has like 5 different names throughout the course of both the movies. Whew.
Yeah.
So yes, dense.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and honestly, I love that Denis Villeneuve did not shy away from any of it. He utilizes all of it perfectly because the story requires that. The story requires you to be full in on this universe and its politics, its religion, its language, everything. And it really benefits being able to just zero in and focus in on what all is happening, in all of those different fields. Because there is so much. I mean, we know the Dune story. We've got the Harkonnens, we've got the Atreides, the Bene Gesserit, and what are they doing? and how all of these different pieces are all surrounding the story and all have their own place in it. And there's just so much there. And Dune Part Two, like, this movie does such a fantastic job of giving you those windows into each piece and how it's bringing it all together.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so much to talk about. I would love to actually like do like a round table deep dive discussion about everything. Like, spoilers be damned. Just have a full on conversation with a bunch of people who love movies. Maybe people who absolutely love Dune to begin with.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily, I would say, either of us, but we're really into it because of these movies now.
I mean, I would be down to just sit and listen to somebody who's like super passionate about them talk about them.
Yeah. So that being said, obviously we like this movie. I will, real quick, because I know we want to talk a little more in depth about this. I do want to say the one little thing that I kind of felt was negative.
Squeeze it in there real quick.
This movie's long. I mean, that's it. That's really it. And that's not a full-on complaint. Granted, the first Dune movie was also really long as well, but when going back and rewatching it, it didn't feel quite as long. And it's kind of like if you ever take a trip, the drive back home is usually much shorter, much easier to go through.
It feels much shorter anyway.
Yeah.
It's not shorter, but it feels shorter.
And that's what I feel like this is. So when going back and watching Dune Part 2, it's probably nowhere going to feel as long as it did sitting in the theater tonight. So.
There's a quote, and I can't remember who says it off the top of my head. While we're shooting this review, I'm sure once we're turning off the camera,
we turn the camera off.
As soon as we turn it off, I'll remember who it is. But it's no good movie can be too long, and no bad movie can be too short.
Yeah, this
is an example of, yes, it is long, so prepare yourself to hang out for a little while in the theater. If you're down for that, then you're good to go. But that being the only real negative that we can find to this movie, if you even want to call it a negative at this point, because again, good movie can be too long, that's boding very well.
That's a negative that's going to easily roll over into a, not really a positive, because it's still going to be the same length.
It's also a very personal and subjective.
Yeah, it'll roll over to it doesn't matter anymore. Now let's go and emphasize all the good things.
I can't wait for Part 3.
Yes. Denis Villeneuve, this is going to be his legacy, these 3 movies. I love the way they set it up. This isn't something like the 84 Dune. I don't remember it necessarily setting up another movie. I don't know if there were like really plans to continue making movies off the other books.
I don't think they did things in the 80s like they do now, where it's like, if it makes a lot of money, we can franchise it.
Yeah, not until like at least the later 80s. I mean, you did have like your Rockies and Star Wars that started doing stuff like that, but
they didn't have that. They didn't necessarily have that idea going into the movies.
Indiana Jones and so there's a lot of movies. Jaws, they did that.
My point is that they didn't have that idea going into those movies. Nowadays, when they greenlight a movie, they go, if this makes money, we'll franchise it.
Sorry, I had to say that, otherwise our comments down below would just be full of people saying like, this movie was a franchise in the 80s and 70s.
No. Anyway, moving on. The point is that I would very much expect to hear Part 3 get green-lighted very soon. Green-lighted. But yeah, Denis Villeneuve. Okay, so talking about him as a director, his name is now one of those names where if it says directed by Denis Villeneuve,
one ticket, please,
I will be seated in the theater for it.
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch actually some other films of his.
I want to watch Sicario.
Yeah, we haven't seen Sicario.
Arrival was great.
Arrival is one of my favorite movies ever. Dune Part 1, obviously we've covered that. Blade Runner 2049 was fantastic.
I was kind of iffy on that one.
You're weird.
I was iffy on the first one as well.
This is why you come to our channel and watch us. The dynamic here. But yeah, Denis Villeneuve, masterful job at directing this film.
Yeah.
So good.
And I know this isn't necessarily on the director, but the cinematography for this, again, we were talking about this. We did our tier ranking show, The Marquee, and we were talking about most anticipated movies for the year. When it came to Dune Part 2, the number one thing I was saying, like, I had a hard time with the first Dune. in the theater and whatnot. But the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is seeing this movie on the big screen, and I was not disappointed. There's a shot at the very beginning where it shows like the Fremen people being attacked by the Harkonnens or whatever, and you see them like flying up the side of a cliff, and it is just a gorgeous shot. And it was one of those like I'm in the theater like, oh damn, that's a good shot.
Yeah, and
it gets better from there.
The cinematography is just masterful. When we get to the part where we're introducing Feyd-Rautha, that whole sequence and the explanation of, I mean, you saw it in the trailer, the explanation of why that sequence is in black and white is actually perfect.
Yeah.
There's just so much to wrap your head around, even in just the cinematography alone. I would dare say that it's worth it for some folks to probably do multiple visits of this movie in the theater just to catch different things. Because you could sit there and just tune out your ears and just watch this movie on just the visuals alone and be completely taken away by the entire thing.
This would be a movie that I would say, like, if you have people over that are all like movie nerds or whatever, put this movie on a TV in the background while everyone's hanging out, just because it would be like having a nice painting, or I don't know, I'm gesturing to that, but it's a good painting. I like it, but have a nice painting or whatever that people can admire in your home, but you have it moving on your TV set while people are gathering and having a good time.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of a movie. It's moving art. So that was kind of like highfalutin, hoity-toity.
That's almost like it's a
bougie
motion picture.
Yeah, go figure.
Huh.
That would be a good idea to call it that.
Huh. Crazy.
And then I would say the music would be the next thing.
Oh my gosh, Hans Zimmer is a gosh dang king.
The music is good. It uses a lot of the same kind of music cues that we got in part one.
Yeah.
But the timing on some of those are so good. There's one where, like, I forgot exactly what happened, but Paul is standing up and trying to recover, and it immediately pops in with like that main bit where you hear like the chants and the stuff, and I could tell everyone in the theater is just like, oh damn, this music is hitting spot.
Let's go
perfectly.
It gets you deep down in the Ghiblies or whatever.
Or those things, yes.
The jellies, that's
the jellies.
It gets you in the jellies.
Right, Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does a fantastic job with the music, the score. It carries it.
Hans Zimmer is a legend in and of his own right. I mean, just you look at his whole career, and going in, you're like, he's going to produce something good here. You've seen it in the first movie, or should I say you heard it in the first movie. You're hearing it again here. Hans Zimmer is just an absolute king when it comes to these compositions.
Yeah. And then the cast. I mean, this is a huge cast, and this would be a huge video if we were sit here and go through each and every single one of them. We're not going to be able to.
Everyone's fantastic.
Everyone's fantastic. I would say some of the standouts for me, I really liked Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha.
Oh, yeah.
I think he does a phenomenal job. Whatever they did to his voice, they kind of modulate his voice a bit.
I don't know if they did or if he just did that himself.
If he did that himself, I mean, hats off to Austin Butler to go from like Elvis to that voice. Which, I mean, he said that he's had a hard time like getting rid of the Elvis twang, accent, voice, impression.
He dives deep into these things. He's almost like method acting into just the voice alone, at least.
Yeah. So I love what they did with his character. Just absolutely amazing. He pulls off. The only downside is we didn't get him in the metal bikini like we did Sting in the '84 Dune. That's it. That's the only downside. Well, you wanted to see that too.
Yeah, Timothee Chalamet, he was, once again, as Paul Atreides, commanding.
Yeah.
Both literally and figuratively. He is going to be, I mean, I know we've already seen him do so much in his career where he's done so well, but if this is not one of the standby leading men in Hollywood for the future, our future George Clooney, Brad Pitt, whatever kind of movie star leading man type you want to.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
That's
probably more Austin Butler, but yeah.
All these names, we're gonna see Timothee Chalamet hit that because the performance he puts on in this movie is, along with the first part, a career-defining performance. Absolutely. Yeah. If you turn around and be like, "What's Timothee Chalamet from?" I know that name. Dune.
And Wonka. That's also currently still in the theaters.
Dune.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that too. He was in that. Huh, go figure. But yeah, he did a damn good job in that movie.
Yeah.
I like Zendaya did a really good job. I like the fact that we got a lot more of Zendaya in this movie.
Oh yeah.
She does a phenomenal job. Love the character.
Everything I said about Timothee Chalamet as leading man, Zendaya as leading woman. I want to watch everything she puts out from here till the end of her career.
Well, good, because she's got another movie coming out this year. It should be a lot of fun.
That's true. For those who are familiar, we go back to Euphoria when we're talking about Zendaya. For those of you who are familiar with her performance from that show, you know how good of an actress she is. She is fantastic. She puts on a show again in this movie.
Yeah,
Zendaya should be applauded.
And I'm also going to say the biggest standout for me in this one is Javier Bardem. His character is so good, and like we got a little bit of how his character was in the first one, especially with his introduction where they're sharing their moisture with one another, spitting on the table. He has that kind of a personality, and it's amped up even more in this movie. And I love every time he talks and he says something. I'm just so enthralled and interested in where his character is leading everyone, and his was probably the standout performance for me.
Yeah, and then of course, I think the last one to really mention here, for the most part, would be Rebecca Ferguson, and just the direction her character goes in. For those who are familiar with the Dune story, they know what direction her character goes in, but she does such a fantastic job at handling this pivot, I want to say, this pivot, so to speak, and just completely embodying what that looks like and how that comes across. If any of that makes any sense.
It will once you see the movie, if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, she put some fear into me in this movie.
Yeah.
I was afraid of Rebecca Ferguson, and as you probably should be.
Yeah. So, I don't know if there's anything else to really talk about. Everything is it's good. It's
visual
such
effects.
A good movie. Visual effects, phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean,
worms.
A lot of it, like, other than like obviously the worms, because those don't actually exist. Other than those, like everything else, I believe was like pretty practical
for the most part. I mean, the large scale sets, I think, were probably still largely CGI, but
possibly, or like a mixture of miniatures used or added in there. Obviously, nobody's eyes glow blue in real life, so that's CGI'd.
All of it looks fantastic. Just the whole visual spectacle of the movie as a whole, all the way around. The audio spectacle. When Denis Villeneuve is talking about how he doesn't want to lead his movies with dialogue, while this movie does feature a lot of dialogue, it is. You can see his artistry as a director. You can see his touch as a director in that the visuals and audio do lead the way, and he does such a fantastic job with that, and it is on full display in this movie.
Yeah. Anyways,
masterpiece.
So, again, yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that, and I feel like that term fits now that we've seen the movie. Yeah. So for rating this movie, I'm gonna have to give it I will give it a 4.5, just a little bit off of that 5. You know what? Screw it. I'll give it a 5. This is a 5-star movie.
Out of 10?
Oh, well, out of 10. Okay, 10. I forget. I'm trying to separate how we do it here versus how we rank them on like Letterboxd or whatever. So 5 on Letterboxd, 10 here.
Glowing.
4.5.
Glowing
I was sitting here
movie.
saying 4.5, and you were giving me a weird look, and I had no idea why. I was like, 4.5's pretty damn good. No, 10. This movie's a 10.
I was trying to figure out how often do I actually give a movie a 10-star rating when it comes to these reviews.
Well, give it a 10-star rating here and keep track of it.
A lot of people typically will say that they kind of refuse to give a perfect score to a movie because no movie is absolutely perfect. But I think that's kind of a very pessimistic way of looking at it. So I will say 10 also. I'm going to say 10.
You copycat.
I was already thinking it.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to say 10. You know why? Because the movie's damn good.
It is.
And you should go see it.
This movie's so good, I'm going to go get me a popcorn bucket at a movie theater and have some sweet
well,
love.
That's going to be the end of this video. I hope you guys liked it. Please feel free to leave a comment down below if you enjoyed the movie or if you enjoyed our review.
Oh, good Lord. Let's wrap this thing up. Yes, that's our review for this movie. Let us know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions of our review and of the movie down below in the comments. Make sure you follow us on social media. We are at The Cinefanatics on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. Make sure you give this video a like and a subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. This may be my favorite movie of the year so far. Anyways.
It hasn't had a whole lot of competition yet.
No.
Anyways, but it probably will stay there throughout the entire year.
Yeah. You can follow me on social media. I'm at RCA Reacts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Letterboxd. Also, youtube.com/@RCA
And you can follow me at Chris Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, as well as twitch.tv/Chris Adams MLP.
That's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching. We will see you on the next one, and goodbye.
Dune. I want to go ride a sandworm.
I bet you do.